Welcome to Total Retail Talks, your podcast channel for retail knowledge.
Hello, and welcome to this episode of Total Retail Talks. I'm Joe Keenan of Total Retail. I am joined today by Topper Luciani, the founder and CEO of Goodfair. We're going to be talking to Topper a little bit today about Goodfair's first wholesale partnership, which is announced with Nordstrom. We're also going to be talking a little bit about the secondhand apparel market and kind of its evolution over the last year or so. So thank you for taking the time to join me today, Topper.
Joe, I can't thank you enough for having me. I'm so excited to dig in and dive into what we're doing at Goodfair, but also the industry at large. I'm just bursting with excitement.
Okay, this is great. So as I noted right off the top, well, actually, let me take a step back. Why don't we have you start by telling our audience a little bit about Goodfair? I mentioned that you founded the company. For those that don't really know about the business yet.
So Goodfair is an online thrift store, and we sell everything on our site by category. So instead of photographing, measuring, and describing and uploading every single piece of used clothes, we sell you a mystery bundle. So instead of an exact flannel shirt, we send you a pack of 4 secondhand flannel shirts, and that cuts down on our costs, and we pass along those costs to the consumer, and it's just a lot more scalable in many different ways. And so we think this model can be utilized across all elements of apparel, but our vision for Goodfair is well beyond apparel. We want to be doing footwear. We want to be doing everything that one might find at a thrift store.
Yeah, that's great. And that's one of the questions I wanted to get into a little bit about is product extensions. You mentioned
Amazing.
Beyond apparel. So that's some exciting news, potentially in the works.
Definitely.
But how about your professional background? Why don't you tell our audience a little bit about, kind of how you got started in this business and kind of your inspiration? I noted that you're the founder of Goodfair. What drew you to start the company?
Yeah, so I started in the used apparel space 10 or 12 years ago by selling used neckties on eBay. And that is what introduced me to this secretive world of textile exporting and textile recycling, because I used to buy the ties from these giant textile recyclers. And I thought that would be an enormous opportunity to build an online thrift store, to supply an online thrift store. But I thought, at first, the opportunity was in vintage. So I started a vintage website that flopped and failed. And that was very painful, but I did it for many years. And then I did wholesale vintage to many stores across New York and Los Angeles. And I also supplied wardrobe for TV and movies. So I've been in this used space for a long time, and I have had almost a religious calling to build a large-scale online thrift store, and have just been dreaming about it and iterating on it for the past decade.
Yeah, and a true entrepreneur, and the first idea didn't necessarily work out, but that's you learn from your your mistakes, or why that didn't necessarily work out, and you've tried to iterate, as you said, and make a go of it with Goodfair. I wanted to talk a little bit about you. Goodfair recently announced a wholesale partnership with Nordstrom. So tell us a little bit about why you're excited about this new relationship and why Nordstrom's the right fit for Goodfair.
Yeah, so first, let me say that we envision a world at Goodfair. We're really trying to change how consumers think about buying used and buying new. And we thought that Nordstrom was a great first partner for the first step in buying used, being a ubiquitous concept around all retailers. And the way I've been thinking about it was that in the way that Facebook started at Ivy League schools, we wanted to start with an elevated branding partnership in order for us to match our kind of progressive beliefs, but also we wanted to expose our brand to some of Nordstrom's customers.
In terms of a culture fit, you've got the obviously the sustainability angle that that you're business model is founded on.
Yeah.
How is that the right, fit in with kind of what Nordstrom is doing in those areas, and why you think that could be a good partnership?
Yeah, I think that the things that they're doing is really pioneering retail. I think they're not scared to take a risk. And they see where, the old Wayne Gretzky saying of, skate to where the puck is going. They are really pioneers in skating to where the puck is going. And they see the writing on the wall around sustainability and around fashion and consumerism. And I think that's why they're trying us out.
Yeah, and I would have to agree, in terms of, when you think of retail trailblazers in terms of areas like sustainability and fashion, Nordstrom is going to be at the top of most people's lists. So it's obviously going to be a mutually beneficial relationship with Nordstrom and Goodfair. So, segueing off of that, let's talk a little bit about what you're doing to kind of create consumer awareness of this partnership with Nordstrom. This is a big deal. And tell us a little bit about what you're doing to kind of get the word out. And then second part of that is, you mentioned it, you might, expose your business to the Nordstrom audience, which is obviously a large one. Tell us a little bit about what this could mean for Goodfair in terms of customer acquisition.
Wow, this is a great question. So we are promoting it across our traditional channels. So our TikTok following is growing very fast. We've got a great Gen Z audience that is very, very tuned to our mission and very, very tuned to our product. And we are, of course, they all know about Nordstrom, but we kind of perhaps give some sustainability credit to them by partnering with them. And then I don't even need to ramble on about all the validation that they give to us. And of course, we're promoting it on our other channels beyond TikTok, our email, and we even had it on our homepage and our Instagram and Twitter and things like that. But ultimately, it is the word is spreading organically. When you've got a tiger by the tail when things are just happening very quickly and kind of without your effort. And we've certainly put a lot of effort into our partnership, but around the promotion, it's just happened so naturally because of what a natural fit it is, and how relevant to the zeitgeist this partnership is right now.
So maybe we can get into the details a little bit in terms of how this partnership is going to work. So is that you're going to have a page on tell us a little bit about how Goodfair product is going to be distributed through Nordstrom, I guess online. Also, is there going to be in-store distribution as well? Tell us a little bit about, how it's the nuts and bolts of it and how it's going to come together.
Sure. So we're starting off very slowly, just kind of dipping our toe into this partnership. And because only fools rush in, as they say, as Elvis would say.
Exactly.
But we can't help falling in love with them. So we just, so basically, we're starting off with a small e-commerce drop model, and that's what we did. And we sold out within hours. So they have increased their order for next month. And so right now they're just buying some vintage clothing from them. And we've got we here at Goodfair, we're in the thick of the vintage world. We're watching the vintage market. We're in conversations with other retailers and wholesalers in this game. So we know what's selling, what's not selling, what's part of culture, what's influencing fashion. Basically, we're establishing ourselves across social media as the foremost experts of vintage and secondhand on the internet. And so we kind of dictate to them by observing the other clothes that are selling on their site, the new clothes. Our team of vintage lords, vintage gurus, kind of get the feel of the vibe that they that is going to sell well for them. Yeah. And then we offer that to them, and generally they buy it. And then sometimes maybe they'll say, oh, well, I think maybe in the coming months, as we prove out this model, they might take some bigger risks or go towards different demographics within the vintage world, because there are so many different types of people who buy vintage, and there's so many different kind of veins of vintage because, it's just used clothing that's 10 years old. So you can imagine 10, 20 years old. So you can imagine how many different styles and aesthetics there are to it.
Yeah. And so in my mind, at least, to what you described, Topper, you're sort of bringing that the product expertise around vintage, around secondhand. That's your game. You guys have been studying that. This is what you do on a day-to-day basis.
Exactly.
Nordstrom is gaining that product expertise, that knowledge in this partnership. And what you're gaining is that distribution to an even larger audience than Goodfair might have been able to reach initially. Is that kind of part of what you see in terms of this partnership?
Absolutely, and our ability to source the goods, so they're gaining that from us. But let's not downplay the enormous validation that they give to us by blessing us with this partnership.
Yes, and then you mentioned vintage and secondhand that varies in terms of customer demographics. For your audience, do you see do you have a core target demographic, or is it really across the board in terms of the visitors and customers that you're seeing on your site?
Yeah, so right now the low-hanging fruit, the customers that have resonated with our mission and our kind of social media tactics have just naturally been Gen Z. They care less about gender roles. They care less about brands. They care less about price. They care very deeply about the environment. All those things combined have made them naturally turn to Goodfair. But ultimately, the way we look at it is each one of our products has its own demographic. So there's going to be a day where we're selling used electronics, and that demographic, the person who's buying that used electronic might not be the same person who's buying the secondhand baseball cap.
Yeah, makes a lot of sense. So let's talk about the market itself. You alluded to it. So tell us a little bit about, in your eyes, how you've seen the secondhand market evolve over the last year, particularly online, and then, what those behavioral changes and/or trends may have been represented in terms of the behavior from Goodfair's customers, what you've seen with your own customer base.
Yeah, so it's fascinating because the trends were already happening. There was sustainability was already becoming part of the American consumer consciousness, but I think the pandemic really sped it up when we all had time to really reflect upon the impact that our behavior and our consumerism really had. And so they're just, if anything, this pandemic has sped up the demand for secondhand, and Americans throw away 80 pounds of clothing per person per year. So the supply is there, and this stuff is winding up in landfills or winding up all over the globe, but not necessarily to be worn. And something had to be changed about it. And our whole world is having this incredible awakening, and hopefully Goodfair is being a large part of that and riding the wave of benefits from it.
Yeah. And as you mentioned, kind of the social consciousness that we're seeing from consumers today, they're making purchase decisions based on, do the values of the company that they're buying from align with their own personal values, sustainability being a major issue for a lot of consumers. That's
For
something
sure.
and I would imagine that's across genders, that's across ages, that's something we're seeing across all consumers at this point.
We are certainly seeing it across all ages, all genders, and we think our views are progressive, but I think that we can appeal to everyone with our low prices and our mission of just trying to help out and just trying to be less wasteful.
Yeah. So let's talk about some of the, you've mentioned some of the trends that we've seen over the last 10 to 12 months during the pandemic. What have you done at Goodfair to try to address some of those changes, maybe some challenges? What challenge that comes to mind for me is around the sourcing of the product is,
Woof.
cleaning it and making sure everything, the kind of the sanitization process. You got to be doubly careful there, I guess, at this point. Tell us a little bit about some of the things that you've had to do to address some of the changes that we've seen in the marketplace.
Yeah, so just from an operations perspective, we've had to change the layout entirely of our warehouse and how we behave, and that is certainly decreased efficiency because of social distancing and the importance of masks and cleanliness across the board. So it has certainly been a challenge, and then also just we've had an uptick in orders because people are not shopping for vintage and thrift in store.
Yeah.
But that puts enormous pressure on us to fulfill the orders and for our staff to come in. And, we don't want anyone coming in if there's a hint of potential infection with COVID. So it has been an absolute challenge, a little bit stressful. And by a little bit, I mean, the side of my face is twitching. Things are like, we've definitely been put under enormous amounts of stress, but we think that our mission is really worth it.
Yeah, and that's what I hear from a lot of companies like yours is that the strain that they're seeing on their supply chain is really it's been overwhelming at points, and trying to get that right to your point of keeping the proper social distancing in your factories and warehouses and, distribution centers. That's really been top of the list for a lot of companies. So you're not alone there, I guess.
Definitely.
So my final question, Topper, is let's look at, we're relatively new into the, still Q1 here of 2021. So let's talk a little bit about where your attention is focused as you look to continue to grow Goodfair in 2021. You mentioned the potential of product extensions down the line. Maybe there's additional wholesale partnerships like like the Nordstrom. Other things that you're thinking about in terms of continuing that positive momentum.
Well, we just have an enormous vision for Goodfair. We're probably going to be sticking with apparel at least for 2021, adult apparel for 2021. But down the line, our vision is kids' clothes, footwear, electronics, sporting goods, everything that's in home goods, soft and hard. Everything that's in the thrift world. Goodfair would like to eventually sell, and we think that we could eventually disrupt Amazon in some capacity. But right now, we just have our nose to the grindstone, and we're just chugging along and trying to provide great value and great products for our customers.
And you've got you've had the good fortune of the new partnership with Nordstrom, which I mentioned, as well as the demand that you're seeing on your own e-commerce site. So keeping up with that is keeping you busy right now, I would imagine, too.
Definitely, and thank you for mentioning that. And so I envision a world where we are partnering with big box retailers. I see a world where we might be able to sell secondhand flannel shirts or secondhand sweatshirts at a Target or a Walmart one day. But for right now, vintage at Nordstrom is a great way for customers to kind of wet their whistle with this concept.
Yep. Yeah, that's great. Well, I want to take the opportunity to thank Topper Luciani, who is the founder and CEO of Goodfair, for joining us today on Total Retail Talks. Thank you, Topper.
Joe, I cannot thank you enough. That was so much fun.
Thanks for listening. For more information on this podcast, please check out our podcast channel page at mytotalretail.com/podcast for show notes. Total Retail Talks is available on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Stitcher, and Spotify. Make sure to subscribe on our podcast channel page as well. If you've enjoyed this episode, please take a few moments to rate and review this podcast. Thanks, and until next time, this has been Total Retail Talks.